I'm Mark Rotterman. Coming up on Front Row, a conversation with former Governor Pat McCrory. Next.
Major funding for Front Row is provided by Econ Air, with additional funding provided by the following. Funding for the Lightning Round segment is provided by the Shanahan Law Group. It's Front Row with host Mark Rotterman.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us, Governor.
It's an honor to be back in a room where I've held many political debates from 2008, 2012, and 2016, so it brings back a lot of memories.
How have you been?
I'm doing well. This is the second time I've been back to Raleigh. I've actually only been out of office now about 3 months, so it's still fresh in my mind. And during
Getting used to driving again?
No. I've had to learn how to drive again. I had to buy a car. I'm getting lost everywhere I go, but I kind of like the independence.
You need a Garmin.
Well, I spent probably 4 hours a day in the back of a SUV doing work and making phone calls. And
so you never paid attention?
I never paid attention to where we were going because I was working the whole time I was in my car. So keeping my focus of driving is a major goal of mine at this point in time.
Let's begin the conversation with the recent HB2 repeal. Your thoughts?
I supported the effort working between the House and the Senate and the executive branch. It's an effort that I attempted on several occasions, and I think it's a move forward. It's a reset. And but the fact of the matter is, this whole issue of how we're going to identify gender in the future, how we're going to define gender in the future, is not going to be decided by a governor or a mayor or a state legislator, or in North Carolina. It's going to be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court where it belongs, and it's going to apply to the 1964 Civil Rights Act on how the word sex will be defined in the future. And that needs to be clarified so every state and every city doesn't go through this debate during the next decade.
Pat, did the NCAA drive this deal?
I'm not sure. You know,
I had
some issues with the NCAA. Let me just say this: the NCAA and the ACC held 3 football games during the midst of a hurricane right here in the Triangle, a hurricane that ended up killing 28 people, and it was one of the most emotional experiences I've ever went through as a leader. And my thought is, if they're willing to do a football games in a hurricane, a social issue shouldn't impact their decision-making process in any state or in any city.
Well, you know, I'm glad I won't have to talk about HB2 for the next foreseeable future. I do want to talk to you about a thing that's very passionate, issues very passionate, you're very passionate about, and that's the opioid crisis, the epidemic that's hitting America. Are we making progress?
Not anywhere near where we need to. In fact, one of the last things I did in my last budget was add $20 million more to health care because of this crisis that is hitting our state, our nation, city areas, rural areas, and we also have a major heroin issue, and some of that as a result of prescription medicine then graduating to very cheap heroin. And in North Carolina, we have a black tar heroin issue going up I-95, I-26 in the west, I-85, and you talk to any sheriff, we've got a very, very serious problem.
I saw the other day that the 4 cities in North Carolina are really real problems for overdoses out of the top 50 in the country.
Well, we're having thousands of people die each year. And
Mark Meadows' district is really bad.
It's terrible. And that's one reason as governor, I'm very proud of legislation which we passed and we sponsored, which first of all is allowing clean needles, something I thought I'd never do as a mayor or a governor, but we're having a hepatitis issue in North Carolina. And the other issue is,
Hepatitis C?
Oh, absolutely. It's spreading because of the heroin needle crisis. And then the other issue is we approved a drug which can save many people's lives and make it more accessible in our Rite Aids to actually help a person who's having a heroin addiction.
Doesn't border security also play into this issue?
Absolutely. The cartels have changed now. The cartels that are coming across the border, they used to only sell in certain areas of the state and in the country. Now they're going where the money is. And it's on the university campuses right here in the Chapel Hill area. It's at Duke. It's at North Carolina Central.
Very cheap product now, right? Heroin?
And they're selling to where the money is. They're selling to fraternity houses, sorority houses, and the addiction is very, very high. And we also need more treatment. And that's why I put a lot more money into treatment. We need more treatment courts in North Carolina. I was very honored as governor to add to the treatment courts in North Carolina. One of my proudest accomplishments as governor.
Well, I'm
by my
glad
team.
to see that Trump is taking the issue seriously.
I am too. He's appointed Governor Christie to help with this. Every
You had any
governor,
talks with Christie?
yeah,
about this?
every governor knows that heroin is and any type of addiction alcohol addiction is also very serious. I'm so proud that Governor Jim Gardner, I call him Governor Jim Gardner. He would have made a great governor. I made him in charge of the ABC. I hate to see him leave the ABC, but he was the one who convinced me to put the commercials about addiction and early age drinking. Because once it starts at 13, 14, and 15, the chances of someone getting over any type of addiction is about 10 to 15%.
You know, Newt's working on that as well. And by the way, one of his allies is Patrick Kennedy. So strange bedfellows, but I think it's generally recognized as a huge problem for America.
And don't be fooled. Patrick Kennedy and I agree on this issue. Is marijuana also, the THC levels of marijuana, it is addictive.
It's so high.
Heroin is addictive. Cocaine is addictive. Alcohol is addictive.
Methamphetamines.
Extremely addictive, and we've got to make sure that doctors no more are prescribing medicine, especially to 15-year-olds who have a knee surgery, and we're giving them pain medication, which then they go from that to heroin, and it's extremely, extremely dangerous.
Let me ask you, when we were talking about border security, do we have a sanctuary city problem in North Carolina?
Well, we passed a
potentially-
law under my leadership to prevent sanctuary cities. And so I don't think there are any now formalized sanctuary cities, and I'd strongly disagree with anyone who does just that. I know there's disagreement in Charlotte, where I was mayor for 14 years, but as a mayor or as a governor, you're sworn to uphold the Constitution of not only your state, but of the United States of America, which includes enforcing the laws, and the laws include immigration laws.
Gang problem, major gang problem? with
Major
MS
gang issues
13?
in North Carolina and the rural areas too of the state. And the gang areas are not just dealing in drugs, they're dealing in human trafficking. And we were starting to make progress on that during my first term, and I hope that continues under the new governor.
You know, as governor, what was your toughest decision you had to make, looking back?
I think the toughest decision was making resource decisions right before Hurricane Matthew. We were watching Hurricane Matthew, and my experts came up to me and said, Governor, we either got to keep the supplies where they are across the state or move them all to the southeast. And I made the decision to keep them where we are just in case the weather forecasters were wrong. And I ended up being right in that, along with my emergency chief. And I think that decision saved a lot of lives.
How are those areas
And I just
doing?
took the experts to tell me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you were right on top of it. Let me ask you, how are those areas doing now, in your opinion?
Well,
I mean, you were still dealing with this.
I was dealing. In fact, most people
night
don't
of the
realize
election,
that,
right?
Yeah, the day after a very tough election for me, where they declared me the winner, I felt like the movie La La Land during the Academy Awards, where Warren Buffett, Beatty, all of a sudden said one winner, and then they declared another winner. But the very next,
please, right?
Yeah. It was a tough night, but the very next day I was dealing with storm recovery, and also we had the wildfires. So my last 4 weeks as governor was dealing with wildfires, a special session, flooding recovery, especially in Princeville and Lumberton, which are two cities that really, really got hit. And
Can they come back?
They have to come back, but I'm not sure should they come back as is. I don't think we should build possibly in the same place or in the same method. If they do, we're going to have the same mistake.
Did you
and
get a lot of
possibly loss
local
life.
cooperation down there from the local
Incredible.
officials?
It was one of the most moving experiences I've ever had in my life. And
Church groups?
I saw heroes. I saw heroes. The fire chief in Princeville who tied a rope to himself and swam out to save a young woman who was drowning in a car. And he went down for several
We really
minutes.
do have good people in this state.
We have the best. This is the best state in the United States of America. And even though I'm not governor, I'm so proud of the work that we did during 4 years, and I'm so proud to get to know the people from the coast to the mountains.
So you would say that was your proudest moment as governor? was
Well,
dealing
we
with the
lost
disasters?
28 people, and I took everyone personally, and almost everyone was lost in a car. And that's why I'm a little personal with the ACC and NCAA. I was very upset with them when they held 3 football games when the hurricane was coming through Raleigh. And it kind of showed me where the priorities are, and the priorities were wrong because we had several people get swept away from cars coming home from
Well, you gave a lot of advance warning. I mean, you were 24/7 almost on these disasters. Any regrets at being governor?
I
That
think the
came up
major
any
regret
issues?
probably was not convincing the city of Charlotte not to pass a ordinance which would require a 30-day jail sentence for people in the private sector who disagreed with the mayor. And I was unsuccessful in convincing them, don't do this. You're trying to solve come up with a solution to a problem that didn't exist. And it was all coming in from the outside, and it should have never been brought to North Carolina.
We're not a home rule state. I don't think a lot of people know that.
Right, and it was government overreach at its worst, and I hope we can move on now.
Well, let me ask you, how should the Trump administration deal with the sanctuary city issue overall?
I agree with the Attorney General Sessions right now. Every mayor and every police chief is sworn to uphold the Constitution and laws of their state and of the United States of America. We're all expected to enforce those laws. And if we quit enforcing our immigration laws, why don't we just, at the airport, let people come through customs? Just walk through customs and say the heck with it. You either have laws or you don't have laws. And if you want to change the laws, then change the laws if you're not happy with them. But as soon as if you have those laws on the books, you need to enforce
Should there
them.
be financial penalties, federal financial penalties to these
I
countries?
think either
Not
financial or
countries, but
civil penalties
states
toward those
or
people
cities?
who are not enforcing the law and doing their job. They're sworn to uphold the Constitution. And I, as a governor, had to uphold some laws that I disagreed with. My job was to enforce the laws of North Carolina. In fact, my political right got real mad at me. Most people forget this, but once the gay marriage was passed by the U.S. Constitution, it was my job to make that happen, whether I agreed with it or not. Once the law is agreed to by the courts, you enforce it. And I vetoed a measure to not allow the clerks to marry gay couples. I think they should have, because that's their job to do, and there shouldn't be any exceptions to that whatsoever.
During your tenure as governor, I'm changing topics a little bit, did you think sometimes that the legislature overreached their
Most people don't realize this, but the legislature writes the laws. The executive enforces the law and can veto. I vetoed 4 times. I sued the legislature 1 time and won the case in the Supreme Court.
That is one similarity you have with Governor Cooper.
Yeah, in fact, he's using my previous case in his lawsuit, which we won in the Supreme Court. But the fact of the matter is there's always going to be a struggle between the executive branch and the legislative branch. But most people don't realize the executive branch does not write the laws. Now, behind the scenes, I got 90% of what I wanted in my budget, in my laws. The media tended to only focus on the 10% of disagreement. And you see that in DC, you see that in Raleigh also. But during my 4 years, I presented 4 budgets, and I got 90% of what we wanted. We passed the bonds, which the voters then approved, which I'm very, very proud of. We paid off $2.8 million in debt. We now have $500 million surplus for the current governor. And
what was that debt when you came in?
Well, the debt for unemployment was $2.6 billion, and no one was talking about it until I got into office. And that was debt that businesses owed the federal government, and the interest was building each year. We now have a $2 billion in reserves. We've not only paid off that debt, but if there is another recession, which it's not if, but when, it will happen, a governor in the future will have money to pay for those who are unemployed.
We are strengthening our rainy day fund even
And
now.
not only that, but our rainy day fund.
It's a continuation of what you did.
When I was in office, when I came into office, the rainy day fund was non-existent. And there were people who were, including the current governor, who did not want me to rebuild the rainy day fund. But thank God we did, because we spent it on the Hurricane Matthew.
Do you think cabinet secretaries should be confirmed, Governor?
I don't think they should, but I think the Senate and the House have every right to do it according to our Constitution.
It slows up the process of governing, though, doesn't it?
I think it does, and if they're going to do it, they ought to have the process in place to do it. And I signed the bill allowing them to do it because I agreed with other things in the bill, but it's tough to find good people right now. I mean, I was paying people $130,000 to run $20 billion budgets. And you know, you can go work for the university and make 10 times that.
Trump brought on a lot of billionaires that didn't need to pay, right?
Well, I brought in two people that were wealthy and they agreed to work for $1. But I brought in other people who couldn't afford the job. And my burnout rate among my cabinet was about 2 years because they were putting in 14 or 15 hours a day. And so was I, and I was burning my cabinet out. And so I had rotations after 2 years, and some of it was they had a tough time affording it.
Overall, during your tenure, how would you say your media relations were with the mainstream media?
I was disappointed in the media here, especially in Raleigh. I didn't get much of a honeymoon. They put too much emphasis. You know, most people don't realize, but 2 weeks into my term, I had an outside group called Progress North Carolina who released a document that said, we're going to eviscerate Pat McCrory. And the second goal
So they were undecided on you.
Yeah, I didn't have a honeymoon, but their goal was to eviscerate Pat McCrory. Their second goal was to, no matter what I did, call it extremist. And their third goal was to get as much free negative publicity as possible against the governor through protest. So,
But Moral Mondays had no impact on your decision or the legislature's
none.
decision.
But
did
they
it?
had a big impact on public opinion and the amount of free media attention. But it wasn't just Moral Mondays. There were times I'd look out the mansion and there'd be 5 protesters and 6 cameras. And the minute the cameras left, the protesters were leave. So it was coordinated through paid people. And that was a little disappointing.
So harder to get your message out?
Well, when our population is what it is in the millions and 9 to 10 million people, and you get 6 people who are protesting, get a lot more publicity than 100 people at a Rotary Club meeting.
Do you think
It's not the way media should act.
Do you think campaigns ought to have more debates, particularly gubernatorial races, 6, 7 debates?
I would have loved to have more debates. I couldn't get my opponent to do more debates. And I don't blame him because he was out fundraising me. They had about $50 million. The campaign alone, let's see, I raised $15 million, which is obscene. It's obscene, but my opponent, Roy, was a great fundraiser. He raised $25 million. In fact, I think this weekend he's having a big fundraiser for the future. So
It never ends.
the money is obscene in politics, and this.
Would you be in favor of capping campaigns financially?
I don't think constitutionally you can. I do believe we need more transparency. For example, I know Roy, and I've done the same thing, and other is having a big fundraiser tonight, and it's called dark money. You have a lot of money being given, and no one knows who's given the money, and that's not
Have
the way
you talked to
politics should
him
be.
since the election at all?
I have not. It was real odd because he got sworn in at 12 midnight, and it was, talk about emotional. My wife and I drove to the mountains, and then we drove back on January 1st, and our security, which we got to know real well for 4 years, great troopers. I love them, miss them. They dropped us off at our driveway in Charlotte and said, "Thank you, Governor, enjoyed it."
That was it.
That was it. And so
Let me ask you
it moves just like
when
that.
you took over, did Purdue talk to you at all
We had probably had a little more conversation.
conversation?
Yeah, and she waited. I got sworn in as every other governor before me got sworn in like January 5th or the 6th. But being sworn in at midnight was quite unique. But the governor has his choice to do that. But the transition was a little different this time.
Let me ask you, I want to pivot back to Trump. You spent a lot of time around him,
Mm-hmm.
particularly during the campaign and during the transition. You went up to the transition.
I did.
What's your impressions of him as a leader and as a man?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to know he's actually a very nice guy behind the scenes. He's extremely courteous. His family is extremely friendly. He's like meeting developers that I've had to meet. Where a developer will come into we elected a developer type to be president of the United States. And
Businessman.
developers think, hey, look at this big plan. It's going to be great. Don't worry about the details now, but it's going to be great. And then they can jump in and go, you see this sidewalk? This sidewalk needs repairing. So he thinks big, and then he jumps to the details. And a person like that needs good team around him. Now, Pence is fantastic. Vice President Pence is a good friend of mine. He and I got elected governor at the same time. I think Pence is a great complement around President Trump with Vice President
Have they had some
Pence.
missteps? Was the health care bill handled right, do you think?
Probably not. I mean, but that's
17% of Americans
Yeah,
didn't
well,
approve.
Clinton
only
went through
approved of that bill.
President Clinton went through the same thing with health care, and remember the Hillary went out. So most new administrations have a tough time. And
Would it have been better, though, Governor, just to do a clean repeal with a transition period to keep people on?
I don't know. I think healthcare is the most complex issue I've ever had to deal with as governor. And it's complex. You've got insurance companies, you've got hospitals, you've got Medicaid, you've got Medicare, you've got all these interested parties, and they're all fighting each other. You've got the state and federal government. And I think it'd be wise to bring in the governors more in the decision-making process. It's really not a Washington issue. It's more of a state issue. This is what President Obama didn't understand. And I think the new administration needs to get a clear understanding that most of health care is through the state, but most people don't realize that.
Speaking of health care, how are we doing with our vets at the VA, you think?
It needs to continually improve. I went to a wonderful event with Franklin Graham up in West Virginia and met with 600 veterans and their families, 600 people. And these vets who are injured need as much help as possible. And we have a lot of vets here in North Carolina. In fact, I met a vet last week there in West Virginia who was a highway patrol officer when I was governor and a member of the Guard when I was his commander. And now he has some traumatic brain injury. He went to
Wow.
and stepped on an IED. And
Don't we need the ability to fire some of these people that are at the VA that continually
Well, I think what
don't get the job done?
I think what President Trump
Change the
is
federal
yeah,
rules?
I think what President Trump is realizing, as I realized as governor, when I came in as governor, it's very hard to fire government employees. They're part of the civil service system.
So you have to change the civil service really to get something done.
It has to change.
Should that be
And
a top priority, you think?
it has to be a top priority because they will outweigh you. The bureaucracy will outweigh a governor, a mayor, and a president. And I saw that happen during my 14 years as mayor of Charlotte, and I saw that sometimes happen where you go, okay, we need to do this, and as a new governor, do it. And you know, you ask about it a month later, yeah, we're getting to it. And I think Trump's and President Obama had some of the same issues. It's like moving a slow ship. But I will say this, I think during my 4 years as governor, we made more positive, dramatic change in the bureaucracy than we've ever seen in our state's history. And I'm very, very proud of that. We took the politics out of transportation funding, which let us build new roads, and it really changed the.
Stop naming highways after politicians?
It's ridiculous. And the
I
only
was hopeful for years, but never happened.
yeah. But I'm very, very proud of what our DOT did in transportation. And we passed a major bipartisan bill literally taking the politics out of transportation. And I pray to God that that stays. And I hope my Republicans in the legislature don't try to bring politics back into it. I hope Governor Cooper does not do that. They've completely dismantled my DOT board.
Let me ask you this. I
hate
want to get
see
back to
that.
politics just a little bit. Have you considered another run for statewide office?
You
You can announce here if you'd like.
No, it's way too early to make. I think
People
I'm
talking to you about
Listen, a lot of my grassroots supporters would like me to run again, and I've told them I will consider it at the right time. And I think my team did a great job in turning this economy and government around in North Carolina. I left my successor a very good economy and a very good budget, and we did some great things. And teacher pay raises. My new budget offered the same teacher pay raises that Governor Cooper offered because we made the smart financial decisions. And
We got on the right financial footing.
if
When
I
do you
see that start changing, I will definitely consider running. And but you know, I first have to ask my wife before I tell you about it, and that's still a long time from now. And the only thing I don't like about running again is the money chase. It's just, as I said before, the money
It's
chase
24/7.
is obscene. And you see the new governor already doing it. You see others already doing it, and the campaign season's way too long.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you're going to announce, we'd love to have you come back here to the front row and give us a heads up.
I better
and an
talk to my
exclusive.
wife first because it's tough being the spouse of a
Look,
politician.
I've really appreciated
By the
having
way,
you
one
on.
disappointment we had, and I'm mad at the legislature
Yeah.
about this, and that is we didn't get the puppy mill bill passed, and my wife is still upset about that. And one day we got to revisit puppy mills. I know it sounds like a minor issue to many, but it's a terrible situation in North Carolina.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up. I appreciate you being here, Governor. Thanks for watching this special edition of Front Row.
Major funding for Front Row is provided by Econ Air, with additional funding provided by the following: funding for the Lightning Round segment is provided by the Shanahan Law Group. It's Front Row with host Mark Rotterman.
Good old Sunday morning, bells are ringing everywhere. Going to Carolina, it won't be long and I'll be there.
North Carolina Channel is made possible by the financial contributions of viewers like you who support the UNC TV network.